Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snow. I'm back with some more the Inca, the peak of the Inca Empire. We just did, well, not just a couple of days ago. We did the basically the rise of the Inca Empire. You know, like kind of where they came from, and learn all these cool facts. Like they didn't have the wheel, and there was really no like I don't know like the big thing is like they don't have horses and stuff like that, so basically everything was by foot. Like I remember I forget which video it was. It was a country's video where they had to kind of like relay the message by mail, and basically they had runners, and it would sound really cool and interesting. But I guess this is the peak, you know, the big peak. Obviously, the most power, the time where it's the most powerful. I guess the most land they covered and everything, and yeah, I know that they're like basically the king's in the middle, and then he has this kind of like provinces, kind of a you know basically surrounding him, whatever. I don't know. But anyways, guys, here we go, and yeah, hope you guys are having an amazing day, and we're gonna jump into this. Sorry if if like things aren't coming out on a regular guess time frame or whatnot, or days are being missed. Kind of things are kind of busy right now. You guys might have noticed, kind of like in a previous video. So, yeah. Anyways, well, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And this is gonna. Okay, here we go. Play.
I didn't order a pizza.
All right.
But that Parker promo saved me so much of my insurance. Brought you a little.
The Inca built an empire that, if placed over the old world, would stretch from St. Petersburg to Cairo.
Wow, that really actually puts things in pretty good perspective. I'm actually really glad they did that, because think about how like big the Roman Empire, like I mean the Roman Empire was definitely bigger, but like you like this, that basically like half of Europe right there, kind of, right?
That, if placed over the old world, would stretch from St. Petersburg to Cairo. They transformed a hostile landscape into an agricultural marvel, and developed a culture with such respect for the dead that corpses were engaging in politics decades after life had left them. In this video, we will look at how the Inca adapted to their environment and became what British historian Felipe Fernandez Armesto called the most impressive empire builders of their day.
Well, it's also like just pretty impressive in itself that they had no like basically history to go off of. It's pretty recent, not recent, but 1300s it was. But like everyone from Europe, like even the Romans, like you can copy from the Egyptians, or people like French and the British. They can basically copy from how like the Romans did it. Like they, things were handed down of how to do things, but they kind of just started on their own kind of thing. They didn't really have anything to go off of. At least it doesn't seem like it. I mean, they could have had some stuff to go off of, but not to the level that the European countries and Asian countries have. So yeah, definitely interesting that they kind of just they're in their own little world over there. Basically, it is, right? Anyways.
Most of the Inca heartland is 3,000 meters above sea level and has low rainfall, low temperatures, and thin soils. It can drop below freezing every single month at this altitude. There is nowhere else on Earth, said anthropologist John Murrah, where millions insist against all apparent logic on living at 10,000 or even 14,000 feet above sea level. Nowhere else have people lived for so many thousands of years in such visibly vulnerable circumstances. The one advantage to this environment, though, was the enormous ecological variety. Due to the massive
I was gonna say there's gotta be some kind of like upside to this, or else they probably move more inland and take over that. I mean, I guess they got the coast and everything, but yeah, I was like, so I'm glad they're jumping into it here. Obviously, different varieties here. Look at that, cool.
Though, was the enormous ecological variety. Due to the massive fluctuations in altitude, you can encounter more than 20 different life zones within a few hundred kilometers. The Inca used this to their advantage.
Wow.
A diverse range of crops was planted in different ecological zones and at different altitudes to ensure against famines caused by climatic changes or diseases, as not all zones would be affected similarly. Any surplus food was stored in warehouses controlled by the state for insurance against famine and drought, and a kind of freeze-dried potato was developed called chino to preserve potatoes in these warehouses for longer periods. As llamas cannot pull a plow...
That's definitely, because I know, like, there's grain, like, a lot of people had grain, like, the Roman time. I guess that was the easiest thing, I guess they obviously had different crops, but, like, if it's cold, like, all the time, like, you can, freeze stuff, I guess, and this is definitely interesting.
Warehouses for longer periods. As llamas cannot pull a plough very well, all ploughing and farming was done by hand. Ancient Andean cultures soon realized that a large group could plough a field much faster than a single farmer.
Yeah.
This soon developed into a complex system of reciprocity and cooperation, which became a pivotal trait to nearly all Andean cultures.
Well, I haven't heard anything about, like, slaves yet, so that's pretty impressive. Is basically everyone comes together, camaraderie and, like, friendship, and, just your neighbors and stuff. Hey, guys, we got to all work together, man. Get this thing going on, and we'll thrive. So I like the, teamwork.
In times of famine, supplies would be redistributed to those in need. Widows, the sick, and people too old for work were taken care of and had their lands worked for them.
That's awesome.
With such an extreme environment, the Inca had to develop these kinds of safeguards to ensure society ran smoothly. Total cooperation from all members of society was necessary, a trait which led to one of the strangest parts of Inca society, the complete lack of markets. It is hard for us to imagine, but the Inca civilization functioned nearly entirely without money. The production, storage, and distribution of goods were wholly controlled by the central Inca government. Each citizen received and contributed food, tools, and clothing to and from state-owned warehouses and needed to purchase nothing.
That is amazing. Like, they didn't have to worry, but, like, everything was self-sufficient inside. They didn't have to trade against other countries and stuff like that. And basically everywhere, no matter where you grew up or lived, that was your crop or that was your skill set, and you did your best with that, and, basically handed it over to the government, and they basically handed back the stuff that you need that you weren't making. So that's awesome. That is definitely awesome. It just shows, like, how the outside world didn't really influence them at all, because they didn't need it. So, like, exploration, I guess, wasn't really a thing. I'm guessing, everyone was just kind of, just chill, set and chill with, their own, country or whatever. So awesome.
Taxes were not collected in money, since there was none, and neither were they collected in other valuables. Instead, taxes were collected in the form of human labor, in a system called mita. Through the use of mita, the central government could move workers across the empire and focus them on what the highest priority tasks were.
It makes sense. I mean, you're almost like, I don't know, I want to say that kind of like you're in like a military, but it's like, instead of like having to serve, a few years in the military, some countries did it. It's like, hey, like, you're able-bodied, this is just part of the way of life here. You got to go help out, which is pretty much what they were saying, if a field needs to be plowed or whatnot, they all got together and did it. I mean, nobody was going without. Like I said, the sick and whatever, the sick and whatever, I guess the poor, and then there wasn't really poor because there wasn't any money, but everyone was taken care of, so there was no need to, I guess no one got really rich. No one was poor. Everyone was just kind of settled in and, taken care of. So, a nice big family, right?
Mining, sewing, and construction are just a few of the tasks that were carried out by mita workers. This is how the Inca were able to complete massive projects in their short 100-year reign. A primary trait of Andean civilizations is their relationship with llamas and alpacas, the only large domesticable animal in the region. Llamas and alpacas were essential to Inca society. They could not only help by carrying goods, but also by providing meat and, most importantly, cloth. This cloth was everything to the Inca. It kept the state functioning. It clothed the people, it functioned as a marker of rank, and well-made cloth was regularly gifted to people that pleased the emperor. Cloth was...
I didn't realize that's how they basically got their clothes from the animals, so wow, that's definitely interesting how it was kind of handed out, so it's cool.
Cloth was regularly gifted to people that pleased the emperor. Cloth was so tightly regulated that the government even issued people their outfits. Each province of the Inca Empire was given some of these state-owned herds and had to produce a certain amount of cloth each year that would be stored in these state-owned warehouses. The Inca warehouses, called cucas, were built along the Inca highway system, one every 22 kilometers or so. An immense variety of goods were stored there, and they could be distributed whenever needed. The storehouses were a response to the challenges of the Andean environment. The lack of navigable rivers, wheeled vehicles, or large draft animals meant that goods couldn't be transported long distances easily. So these warehouses were constructed within walkable distances. They also allowed armies to march across the realm without weapons and equipment slowing them down, as they could equip themselves at the warehouse closest to their destination.
That's so smart.
One of the most essential elements in the success of the Inca Empire was the remarkable system of highways, extending for at least 40,000 kilometers. These highways had to pass over mountains, and frightening suspension bridges were common. Relay stations called tambos dotted the highway, stationed by runners or casquis. These were the fastest men from the nearby town who would run from one tambo to another with gifts, quipu or messages. This system allowed the Incas to send information across 392 kilometers in a day.
That's the... I can't... I'm sorry, I apologize. That's the country I was talking about, that, they just ran. I mean, they had the best runners, and they still got like information crossed between, I guess, pretty quickly. I guess they didn't have writing, so I guess I did that information really. Like, if you're trying to, I guess, as word of mouth, I guess, when you're relaying a message, from one place to another, because they didn't say they didn't have like a writing system kind of thing. So interesting.
The Roman Empire, even with mounted messengers, could rarely get a message over 320 kilometers away in a day.
Wow.
Along with these huge highway projects, the Inca cut through mountainsides, building cisterns, terraces, and irrigation canals to increase agricultural productivity. At the empire's peak in the 16th century, over 1 million hectares of terraces were in use. A terrace was constructed by building a retaining wall and then laying gravel, then sand, and then soil on top of each other, forming a step. This captured water that would otherwise rush down the hillside and prevented flooding by filtering the water slowly. It also provided a way to stop crops from freezing, as the stones would absorb heat from the sun and retain it through the cold Andean nights. In an environment where only 2% of the land is suitable for agriculture, the Inca transformed their heartland into an agricultural powerhouse. Finally, there's the magnificent Inca stonework. The Inca used perfectly fitted stones that could stick together without the use of mortar. They fit stones together like enormous jigsaw pieces. They were so well fitted, a pin could not pass through most of the joints. Major Inca constructions have also been found to be earthquake-proof.
Wow, so they either found like the perfect, like a jigsaw puzzle. You got like a whole bunch of stones. They kind of went through the stones to see which ones fit the best, kind of thing. And I guess I'm guessing that the ones that fit the best didn't fit perfectly, so they probably had like a chisel or something, right? Some kind of tool to kind of, make it where it fits. So wow, that's impressive.
Major Inca constructions have also been found to be earthquake-proof. These rocks were quarried, shaped and moved using mostly stone tools and rope. That is the physical Inca realm, but what was their spiritual realm made up of? The Inca believed wholeheartedly in the idea that the spirit realm and ours were linked, and that the dead could influence events in our world. One of the most unusual manifestations of this belief was Inca mummification. These malki, as the Inca called them, were not the typical way to spend your afterlife. Only members of influential families were regularly mummified, and the corpse was treated as if it were living. They were fed, dressed, and cared for as if nothing was different.
What?
In return, the dead would protect their families, maintain fertile land, and ensure a steady supply of water. They were consulted in all critical life matters, and
Okay, but like, obviously, I guess, they're mummified, but you put looks like beer and food there, and you come back, I mean, it's still going to be there rotten, right? Or maybe the animals ate it and they just thought that. So, wow. That is definitely interesting. And they change their clothes and stuff? Wow.
supply of water. They were consulted in all critical life matters and asked about how to proceed during troubling times. The mummies of Inca rulers received an unimaginable level of care and respect. They lived an afterlife enviable to the living. Dead Inca rulers were meticulously preserved, so much so that the Spanish discovered people worshipping them long after the empire had fallen. Even in death, Inca nobles still maintained control of all their wealth, land, and estates. What is odd to us made perfect sense to the Inca, as mummies were seen as living creatures. This strange belief contributed to both the rise and fall of the Inca. As the wealth of a dead emperor was not passed on to his successor, it was instead managed by their panica, which was a kind of royal family group tasked with preserving mummies. So new emperors could not use the wealth of their predecessor, and new conquests and constructions had to commence immediately to secure wealth and power. As all the good land around Cusco fell under the control of dead rulers.
Wow, so basically, it's its own fault that it crumbled. I mean, yeah, if all this wealth that you could use to basically build your empire, like if you're the next guy in town, there's changes you want to make, it's not there, and so you kind of have to have great influence among your people to get things done. And I don't know, that's got to be rough, for the new, to make a good first impression if you're like the new emperor. So wow, that's interesting.
As all the good land around Cusco fell under the control of dead rulers and their strange mummy corporations, emperors had to spend significant amounts of time and effort on campaigns far away from the empire's center. This expanded the empire quickly, but allowed little time for consolidation. Competing panicas vied for power so intensely and ruthlessly that Machiavelli himself would blush and Medici would take notes. When the Spanish arrived, they would use these competing families against one another to weaken the empire. Despite all their monumental buildings and works, and despite the kind of guaranteed welfare that the Inca state provided, they were still plagued with revolts. Their empire didn't have a lot of time.
I mean, there's always something to be jealous of your neighbor with, even though it's a great system, someone's always going to be jealous of someone else. And so, like, I want to have the power in your neighbor, and then your neighbor wants the power, and then you start having these feuds, and yeah, I can definitely see where this is coming from. It's not like, whatever, yeah.
Time to consolidate their rule. When the Spanish arrived, the empire was barely 100 years old. Loyalties from conquered ethnic groups were fickle, and emperors had to deal with many bloody revolutions during their reigns. No Inca emperor dealt with more of these than Huayna Capac, who spent most of his reign pacifying newly conquered territory. However, he isn't remembered today as being the revolt-smashing emperor, No, he's remembered as the first Inca emperor to die of smallpox, and his death kicked off a massive Inca civil war just as the Spanish first arrived. Make sure to tune in to the next episode to see two great empires collide in an epic story of deception, resistance, and conquest.
So we're doing an Inca in Spain, I'm assuming, right? Wow, that's all he's known for is smallpox. Like, I guess the Spanish brought the smallpox, a disease over, and he kind of caught it, kind of thing. I'm guessing. I guess we're going to war next episode. But wow, definitely an odd ritual, with mummification and not being able to, can't really pass down to your ancestors, the money and wealth. So, well, there's no money, but the wealth and everything. So wow, just definitely odd. That's definitely a first. Never heard of that before. So new stuff. Okay, Spanish conquest. Okay, yeah, so it is. Yeah, Spain. Okay, makes sense. But anyways, guys, please hit the like and subscribe button. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely, that's a crazy. Like I don't know, the mummy. I'm just still dumbfounded with the whole like mummy, and then you feed them still, and they keep their land still, and if you want to be the next emperor, they're gonna have to keep going farther and farther to the kind of for their influence or the campaign or whatever. I don't know, but definitely crazy. It's crazy. So I say crazy, but like, what I'm saying. It's just wow. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. But anyways, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace. Catch you guys in future videos. I'm out of here. Have a great night.